Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast. I'm your host, Rich Herrera. This is your podcast for all things food and pop culture. Thanks for joining us. Just a couple of reminders. Follow me on socials at Eat Your Content and at Rich Herrera on all social media platforms. And also to like, follow, and subscribe, Eat Your Content anywhere you get your podcast. That way you know when new episodes are coming out. A couple of programming reminders. This is a series of interviews I did during a one-day virtual event called Potapalooza. The best way I can describe it is a speed dating match between podcast hosts and podcast guests, where we all kind of got into a room and read bios and decided, yeah, I think I want to have that guest, or yeah, I want to be on that pod. And here we are. It's been a long 10-hour day, but I've met a lot of great guests that I probably would not have met otherwise, and had some great conversations. So with that in mind, I have Paul Brown here with us. Paul Brown is on a mission. He's a passionate advocate for clean water access, the founder of Servant Leadership Charities. Paul, thank you so much for being on the pod.
Thank you so much for having me. Grateful to be here.
Yeah. So we don't have a lot of time because they allot us about 20, 25 minutes for this. I'm just going to jump right in. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the mission of clean water and making sure people have access to clean water? Where were the turns in your life that said, this is what I want my life's work to be?
Sure. Yeah. About 15 years ago, I was on one of my favorite authors' website. I was learning about early Christian history, and I saw a book on there about giving to the poor. And I thought, I don't want to read about giving to the poor. I want to learn about early Christian history. And then I thought to myself, do you realize how dumb you sound right now?
So I ordered the book. History.
Yeah, before the church was Romanized and married to the state, it was all about helping people. So I ordered the book and became convicted that whatever I didn't need would go to help others. And about 6-7 years later, I was at my first real estate investors conference, and the guy was up there speaking about how you can be great and how you can do well in real estate and how you should buy my course and all that kind of thing. And about that time, I heard a voice that told me, Paul, you're going to fix this water problem in this generation. And Rich, have you ever had 4 thoughts in a split second?
I can't say that I have.
Okay, well, I did. And I remember what all 4 of them were.
Wow.
But one of them was like are you sure you got the right guy? Because I don't have the network or net worth for that kind of thing. But then it also occurred to me that, well, that's really not my problem. If I've been called to do this, I need to just say yes, and the resources will come. And that's what's happened. So I left that real estate investors conference highly inspired, but I didn't throw myself into philanthropy. I built a much better real estate investing company than I would have, because I had the inspiration of, if I don't do what I'm called to do, then 1 billion of my friends might get sick or die. And that caused me to take way more risk and way more action than I would have. So a few years later, I'd mostly freed up my time through that business. And I was in my commercial banker's office, and one of his clients walked in named Jim, and he introduced me and said, Jim, you need to meet Paul. His life purpose is getting water to the poor. Y'all should talk. And Jim said, well, buddy, I run 1 million wells, and we do just that.
Wow.
And he invited me to work with him. And a few years later, I went with him. In 22, I went with him to Malawi and Uganda. We trained up several water well drilling teams. And a few months later, when we got back, they sent me to India. We had an established team there, but my task was to meet with them and help them set up a second team in different geography. And we did that. And what I love about the method is it's all about the people and empowering the people. So we get there, we educate them on the technology we use, which is low-cost materials you can source anywhere in the world. We do it in such a way so that it pulls the earth up out of the ground as we drill, mainly by hand, which doesn't damage the aquifer, makes it last a lot longer. And we equip them, we leave the equipment with them so that when we leave, we're not disrupting the economy or creating dependencies, and they can maintain the well and install more without us, which is what we want.
Wow. So you go into these areas and you train the local people there to build these wells, and then that frees you out to be able to go to other areas and build wells. It's almost like church planting. You know, you go in and you plant a church and you train up the local leadership there to plant more churches, and you move on to the next place. And
That's
I
right.
think I
A
think
lot of people hear that model and they say, "Oh, so you're teaching them to fish." And that's exactly right. Because
yeah,
I would need 2 or 3 thousand years to install 1 million wells, but we can raise up teams of teams that can do it, in a
yeah,
few years.
yeah. I find it interesting. You talk about, you feeling led and called by God to do this thing, and you're like, I don't know how to do this. I don't have the net worth. I don't have the networks. And it reminds me of, like with Moses, when God called Moses to pull his people out of Egypt, he's like, I can't do that. I have a speech
That's right.
impediment. I can't, and then, God kind of scolds him, like, who are you to question me? I am calling you to do this. And if I'm calling you to do this, I'm going to prepare you for the task. So it's really interesting to hear the story of how people were lined up in your path, the well digging guy, to be able to connect with him in a serendipitous way, to be able to dig these wells. So I want to ask you about getting access to clean water. We live on a planet that is 75% water. What is the main things that's inhibiting people from getting access to clean water, and what should be a source that people should be able to get to? What are some of the hurdles that you've run into of getting clean, potable water to a group of people?
It's a great question. There's really only two reasons that I found why people don't have water, and they both start with an O. So it's oppression and or a lack of organization. And I've not found a situation outside of one of those two, and sometimes it's both, but I've not found a situation outside of those two things that would explain why somebody doesn't have water. And one of the reasons I say that is there's there's way more water than we need in the earth, and I'm talking about drinkable water. I'm not just talking about salt water. And there's way more money than we need too. So like the water problem is estimated, it's somewhere between a $1 to $19 billion problem, somewhere in there. And I get that may be more money than you and I have together right now, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's really not that big of an amount when you talk about the fact that it affects 1 to 2 billion people. So if it can be solved for $2 billion and affects 2 billion people, well, you're talking about saving a life for $1 a head. That's a pretty low cost. It's a very high impact for your dollar. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it. And but the point I'm making is there's one river in Africa that has enough water in it to supply the whole world with all the water we would need. Water can neither be created nor destroyed. And even if water is made impure by what we do to it, even if it's impacted by nuclear, it can still be filtered and brought back to its original pure source. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not a matter of resources, and it never is. I tell people in business all the time, don't think resources, think resourcefulness. And that's an important philosophy. But it's usually not about resources. It's more about how we're using the time and how we're using those resources. And it's about love. Are we looking out for other people?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I kind of think about us in the United States and how much bottled water we go through when we have easily accessible, tap water,
Yeah.
and we're, almost wasting bottled water. And like Dasani, for instance, is basically bottling up your tap water and reselling it to you. Like how
I've heard
much?
that.
Yeah, you look on the back of the label, it says, municipal water source. That means it's coming from your local city. They're just putting it in a bottle and reselling it to you at 5 times the price. When you see some of these companies doing that, how much does that like infuriate you in your travels to places like India, and people not having water? Do you see people here in the States buying bottled water and companies selling it for a profit? Should water be sold for a profit?
It it used to annoy me, not as much anymore, and I'll tell you why. Just so I don't forget what you asked, I'll answer that last question first. I personally don't have a problem with someone packaging up water and selling it on the free market. I am concerned about where the world's going and when someone's water is unjustly taken from them, and I'm concerned about coming water wars, which are wholly unnecessary. But so are so many other things that that globalists have done to, you know, regular folks like us that really just want to get along. So so there's a stat. One of the first stats I heard was that Americans, I think they, at one of these past years, spent about $12 billion on bottled water. And when I heard that, I thought, well, um, that's also about how much money it would take to get folks that have to walk, 4-8 miles a day, most of their day to get water.
Mm-hmm.
What's But I've become less judgmental of Americans and bottled water drinkers because I live in a both and world. And I think it's a good thing to remember that, hey, buy, buy bottled water, donate $1 to the water cause. Now, that might be a nice positive, spin to put on that. But it's a both and world. Americans can buy their bottled water and also contribute to fixing folks that live nowhere near a well or a bottled water selling store.
Yeah. In your experience of bringing water to those that need it, and your experiences in well digging inland, how desalination of the ocean to bring potable water to people? I've heard pros and cons to that. I heard it takes a tremendous amount of energy and a tremendous amount of money to do that. But do you see a way forward for, we can't only drill so many wells, right? But we have 75% of the globe covered in water. Is desalination an option to be able to bring clean water to people?
It gives me comfort that it exists, that it is an option. I've heard the same thing, that it's very energy intensive. I think for the most part it's not necessary, but it gives me great comfort that it's there and that it's possible. I've got a pump that I've not used. I have it as an emergency, and maybe I'll try it out one day. It's like a hand pump that I think it desalinates water. But no, there's a lot of these places where people are walking for miles to get water. There's water under the ground they're walking in, and a lot of times it's within 80 to 100 feet, which to me is very close.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about water that's in the water sands, it's in the aquifer, it's already clean and pure. I'm not talking about groundwater. You don't want the groundwater
Yeah. Yeah.
unless you've got a lot of good filters going.
So people could be listening to this podcast. You're talking about these far off places like India or Africa, digging wells, and what can I, as you know, Joe Schmo from Jacksonville, Florida, how can I, what can I do? I'm just one person. How can I help?
I think that's the beauty of it, because your dollar can go so long, and you can literally save a life for $1 to $3. Um, I wouldn't focus on the massive amount of the problem. Focus on what can you do. So there are plenty of people that they could commit to giving $1 a month or $7 a month or whatever they cannot miss. And with the water well technologies and trainings that we use, yeah, we're seeing lives saved for somewhere between $1 to $3 per head. So before we go, I can give you a website. They can sign up for the newsletter. There's a donate button there. Not here to pressure anybody on that, but if you feel so led to give, then go for it. One of the questions I ask people, and this sounds like a kind of a pressuring question, but it's how many lives did you save last year? And that's not really necessarily something we think about, but this is an opportunity to save lives, and not so you can be a hero, and have some complex, but just if you're living, you've been given life, and there's a way for you to extend that gift to other people without it becoming this big guilt thing or, oh, what can I do? It's just too big.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're coming up on our time here, our designated time at Potapalooza. So I want to give you as much time as you need to promote your foundation, what you do. How can people find you? How can people follow you on social media if you have a social media profile? And you mentioned a website where people can donate. Feel free to plug that. But mainly, where can people find you, and what can people do?
Thank you, Rich. Most of my handles on social media, I'm on most platforms at Paul B. Walking. That's a play on the fact that I'm about to walk across the African continent for the next year and a half.
Oh, wow.
12 to 15 countries. So Paul B walking. And but probably the faster way to get in touch with me is waterwalk.co. If you go there, you put in your email address, you'll get the weekly newsletter. I send that. So I'm a real person sending it to you, and the audience a real person. And when you hit reply and you say, "Oh, that's neat that this week you prepped and did such and such," or "Hey, I didn't like it when you said such and such," or "It really resonated with me when you said such and such," those come right into my email in my inbox. I read them, and I usually reply and say thanks for reaching out. So that's probably the fastest way to get a hold of me and to stay in touch with what we're doing over the next 2 years, walk across the continent. And again, that's waterwalk.co.
Wow. Walking across Africa. That's amazing.
I'm gonna see some neat food along the way as well.
I was going to ask you. I hope you take pictures of that and put it up on Instagram, because I put pictures of my food. I'm one of those irritable people that when you go to a restaurant, that I'm the guy over there with the camera over the food.
I'm glad, and you. I mean, that's your business model too. Hey, I've got a neat food story to tell you about Uganda if you got time.
Yeah, man.
All right, so first time I was in Uganda, some of the locals were telling me about Rolexes and how I needed a Rolex. And I was thinking, I've never had a Rolex, never really planned on having a Rolex. And they're like, no, we're eating Rolexes for breakfast. So they go to these street vendors and they get us these delicious, it's like a egg and tomato and onion tortilla. So good. Anyway, so it's one of my favorite things to get there is Rolex.
It's a food called a Rolex.
Yeah, it's a breakfast food.
Paul, thank you so much for your time on being on the pod. This has been a long day on Podapalooza, and I love your story. So I will make sure to spread the word. And how many lives did I save last year? I saved none. But if I can save a life for $1 a day, that would be something that I lose $1 in the couch cushions to be able to save a life across the ocean. So I will definitely try to do that. Paul, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Eat Your Content. If you like what you hear, please consider supporting the podcast through my merch store on TeePublic. Get great quality items like t-shirts, hats, mugs, and more, all sporting the vibrant Eat Your Content logo. Go to teepublic.com/user/eatyourcontent for more great items, and thanks for your support.